Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtaki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 25, the glories of devotion service, text number 13 onwards. So far we saw how Mother Devahuti is praying to Kapil Dev to remove her illusion and break her attachments. So now Lord Kapil Dev will start speaking. Shri Bhagwan Uvacha Yoga Adhyatmika Punsam Mato Nishveya Sayame Atyanto Pratyayatra Dukhasya Cha Sukhasya Cha. The personality of Godhead answered, the yoga system which relates to the Lord and the individual soul, which is meant for the ultimate benefit of the living entity and which causes detachment from all happiness and distress in the material world, is the highest yoga system. So the yoga system which relates to the Lord and the individual soul and which is meant for the ultimate benefit and which causes detachment is the highest yoga system. In the material world, everyone is trying to get some material happiness. But as soon as we get some material happiness, there is also material distress. In the material world, one cannot have unadulterated happiness. Any kind of happiness one has is contaminated by distress also. For example, if we want to drink milk, then we have to bother to maintain a cow and keep her fit to supply milk. Drinking milk is very nice, it's also pleasure, but for the sake of drinking milk, one has to accept so much trouble. The yoga system, as here stated by the Lord, is meant to end all material happiness and material distress. So it ends all material happiness and distress. It's not that by yoga system will not have any distress and only happiness. It ends material happiness also. Because it's supposed to give us transcendental happiness. The best yoga as taught in Bhagavad Gita by Krishna is Bhakti Yoga. Okay, now coming back to the happiness part. So when one is transcendently happy, it's not necessarily that he won't be materially happy. I'm not saying that the one devotees are not materially happy. They're always happy. But the so-called material happiness that one looks after, bhakti or yoga system, the real yoga system, it removes the attachment to that happiness, to the material happiness. It's also mentioned in Gita that one should try to be tolerant and not to be disturbed by material happiness or distress. Of course, one may say that he is not disturbed by material happiness, but he does not know that just after one enjoys so-called material happiness, material distress will follow. This is the law of the material world. Lord Kapila states that the yoga system is a science of the spirit. One practices yoga in order to attain perfection on the spiritual platform. There is no question of material happiness or distress. It is transcendental. Lord Kapila will eventually explain how it is transcendental, but the preliminary introduction is given here. So materially, everything is temporary and everything changes and it's very small. Whether it is happiness or distress, it's going to be temporary and it's going to change its position and it's going to be very little fleeting. But when the material happiness is temporary, it just gives distress to people because they cannot, because everybody wants to enjoy. Ultimately, this is the position of the soul. Satchit Ananda. Ananda is a constitution position of the soul. So soul wants to enjoy. But the happiness that he gets. For example, Prabhupada gave the example of milk. Suppose somebody is working very hard, like students these days, board exams, and after the board exams, there will be entrance exam in engineering, medical colleges. They'll be working very hard, studying very, very hard. Rigorous competition is there, so much to cram and this and that. And suppose, and only chosen few will be selected to IIT. IIT, we are on the premier institute of engineering and technology. And especially in all the IITs now there we have so many IITs, Kanpur and Delhi and Chennai, IIT, Bombay IIT, they're the topmost ones that the students get into it. And students work very hard and he gets top rank and he gets into wherever, IIT Delhi suppose, and gets his favorite branch, computer science. So how long will that happiness last? Not too long. And then he gets into IIT, of course, going through 4 years of training and studies and the exams and the lab and the projects. It's not easy. So once he's in IIT, he or she, whatever, I don't want to say only boys get into IIT. So once the candidate is in, a student is in IIT, then he studies and works hard. And then he graduates, and then he gets a chance to come to America. Then he's very happy, parents are very happy, and relatives are very happy. And then he comes to America, or then he works hard another 2 years to get his master's, then gets a very nice job. How long the material happiness lasts? That is the question. It's not forever. Even the richest people in America, there's so many rich people here. And among them, the richest few, are they really happy? Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the world, Amazon CEO, he recently had gone through divorce. Why? Because his wife found out he was having extramarital affair. So obviously he wasn't happy with his wife. He has the most money. I don't even know, $100 billion he's worth. He wasn't happy in his relationship. That's why he was looking for another relationship. So, happiness, material happiness, doesn't last forever. And it is very fleeting, very small, very, very little compared to transcendental happiness. Look at transcendental happiness. Look at the devotees and the yogis. Yogis, they are sitting in the caves in the Himalayas and they don't even have more than one set of clothes, not even full set of clothes. And they're sitting there happily just meditating. And the devotees are happy, chanting and dancing and serving, hardly have any money with them. So the happiness, the transcendental happiness that one is looking for, the soul is actually looking for the transcendental happiness. It's very, very powerful and it is permanent actually. And that's why Lord Kapil Dev is saying that there is no question of material happiness or distress because it will be gone. And yoga system teaches us that one should not be disturbed by material happiness or distress. Of course, this doesn't mean one should not work towards material happiness or material fulfilling material desires. One should work. One should work to make money. One should work to, if if he's into business or job, one should work hard, take care of the family, but understanding that these material things will not give me happiness actually. As long as we keep it material, we engage everything in service of Krishna, the same money becomes spiritual, same job, position, everything becomes spiritual. It all depends upon our consciousness. Text 14. Tam imam te pravakshyami yamavocham puranage rishinam shrotu kamanam yogam sarvang nepunam. O most pious mother, I shall now explain unto you the ancient yoga system, which I explained formally to the great sages. It is serviceable and practical in every way. The Lord does not manufacture a new system of yoga. Sometimes it is claimed that someone has become an incarnation of God and is expounding a new theological aspect of this absolute truth. But here we find that although Kapil Muni is the Lord himself and is capable of manufacturing a new doctrine for his mother, he nevertheless says, I shall just explain the ancient system which I once explained to the great sages because they were very anxious to hear about it. When we have a super excellent process already present in Vedic scriptures, there is no need to concoct a new system to mislead the innocent public. At present, it has become a fashion to reject the standard system and present something bogus in the name of a newly invented process of yoga. And so-called yoga systems that are in fashion in the market today, there's so many, but they're not yoga. They're basically, like Prabhupada mentioned so many places, they're basically the gymnastic exercises. But that doesn't bring one even close to Krishna, even 1 millimeter close to Krishna, because it is not geared towards serving Krishna. It's only geared towards do the exercises, stay fit, and enjoy the life. But that's not what yoga system is all about. And not only yoga system, so many processes we see these days, not at all based on Vedic understanding, based on Vedic scriptures. So it has become a fashion that's why they're called Muni. Muni means one who does manan, or he thinks of something new. So the Munis or the speculators, they think of something new. Okay, this way it could be good, and I can just tweak the process a little bit this way, a little bit that way, and let everybody choose whatever they want and just make it look like Vedic understanding, and people follow that. Because those kind of systems, they don't have too many rules and regulations. So where there's less restrictions, people will definitely go for it. Not understanding that this is not going to help. Lord Kapil Dev, he did not manufacture a new system like Prabhupada saying. He could have. He is the Supreme Lord. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavad pranitam. Whatever Krishna says, whatever the Lord says, that is Dharma. The Lord Kapil Dev could have manufactured a new system, but he didn't. Why? So people have faith in the Vedic scriptures. So whatever is mentioned in Vedas, that is the absolute truth. Absolute truth means it's not a relative truth. Absolute truth means it's good for all times to come for everybody. It just we have to present it properly so people can follow it. Cheta khalvasya bandhaya muktya chatmano matam guneshu saktam bandhaya ratam vapunsi muktaye. The stage in which the consciousness of the living entity is attracted by the three modes of material nature is called conditional life. But when that same consciousness is attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is situated in the consciousness of liberation. There is a distinction here between Krishna consciousness and Maya consciousness. Guneshu or Maya consciousness involves attachment to the three modes of material nature, under which one works sometimes in goodness and knowledge, sometimes in passion, and sometimes in ignorance. These different qualitative activities with the central attachment for material enjoyment are the cause of one's conditional life. When the same Cheta or consciousness is transferred to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, or when one becomes Krishna conscious, he is on the path of liberation. So the consciousness. Soul is always spiritual. Soul never becomes material. And soul is never conditioned. Body is always material, whether subtle or gross body. It's always material. It's never. It can be spiritualized. The processes of yoga. It's just the consciousness. Again, the word comes for consciousness. Consciousness of the soul decides whether the soul or the living entity is conditioned or whether he is liberated. Now, consciousness also, it cannot work on its own. It's the function of the soul. The soul falls in the material modes. The soul, out of its independence, takes up those material qualities. So the consciousness gets altered or consciousness gets covered over. So material qualities means he wants to enjoy the material world. So that becomes a conditional life. Why conditional life? Means it is dependent upon some conditions to be fulfilled for the soul to be happy, or for the soul or even the body to function properly. It's depending upon some conditions. Like when we used to do this experiment in the chemistry lab or even the physics lab. So chemistry lab, you have to add this chemical and that chemical at this temperature and in this proportion to get this reaction, to get these products. So there is a condition. If that condition is not fulfilled, the reaction will not happen properly and some other product will become. So similarly, the soul, now the consciousness is material, now the body is there, somehow he got human body or he may get dog's body. Now the dog has his material body, gross body, subtle body, soul is there, consciousness is there. Now the body has to have some conditions met, fully met, for the soul to enjoy as a dog. Now the dog cannot enjoy in water. Dog, if he's put in water, he'll be miserable. Dog, now we all know some things dogs enjoy, dogs don't like, and some things they like. So it has become conditioned. Like these conditions have to be met. Just like for us, human beings, some conditions have to be met. Like we can only hear sound between certain frequencies. Less than that frequency we cannot hear, and higher frequencies definitely we cannot hear. The eyes are conditioned. there has to be proper light for the eyes to see. And then with so much of technology coming in, our body also gets conditioned. That's why we have to have air conditioner in the house, because we have to have the conditioned air. If it is at certain temperature, the air conditioner is working, we feel comfortable. Otherwise, we'll be miserable. But this has nothing to do with the soul. It's all the working of the mind, actually. The soul is always happy. In the spiritual world, there is no air condition, there is no electricity, there is no darkness. So the body or the spiritual senses, they are not dependent upon some material conditions to be fulfilled to function properly. So in the spiritual world, everything is different. Here it is perverted reflection. There everything is free, everything is different. And the soul, because it's a spiritual body, it's not dependent upon anything to be happy. That's a different story there. Because soul, like Krishna explained in Bhagavad Gita, soul does not get, we cannot burn it, we cannot moist it, we cannot wither it with the wind. It doesn't matter whether the electricity is there or not. Of course, in spiritual world, we don't need electricity. Soul will be happy. It's not dependent upon the physical conditions for soul to be happy. So only thing the soul, the spiritual, in the spiritual world, or anywhere, actually it wants only the service of the Supreme Lord. That relationship, that loving relationship with the Supreme Lord. And in that relationship, the soul wants to serve him. So that condition, that consciousness makes us Krishna conscious. That's it. Or liberated conscious. At least it sends us on the path of liberation. Because then we don't care for material happiness or distress. We're completely detached. And this is what Sankhya Yoga system does. And that's what Mother Devotee is looking for. Aham mama abhimanotya kam lobha devir malah vitam yada manah shuddham adukkam asukham samam. When one is completely cleansed of the impurities of lust and greed produced from the false identification of the body as I and bodily possessions as mine, one's mind becomes purified. In that pure state, he transcends the stage of so-called material happiness and distress. Kam and lobha are the symptoms of material existence. So kam means we want to enjoy something, and lobha means greed, when we want to enjoy. When we get something, our desires increase. Everyone always desires to possess something. It is said here that desire and greed are the products of false identification of oneself with the body. When one becomes free from this contamination, then his mind and consciousness also become freed and attain their original state. Mind, consciousness, and the living entity exist. Whenever we speak of the living entity, this includes the mind and the consciousness. The difference between conditional life and liberated life occurs when we purify the mind and the consciousness. When they're purified, one becomes transcendental to material happiness and distress. So, consciousness is material, the mind is material, mind is the storehouse of all the desires. And that's why Prabhupada says, mind, consciousness, and the living entity exist When we speak of the living entity or the jiva, this includes the mind and the consciousness. Of course, jiva is separate from mind, but in the conditioned state, we cannot really separate because soul is guiding the senses, because senses on their own, they cannot work unless the soul is there. Senses work and the senses get some interaction, get some desires to enjoy something. And that desire does not come from the senses, actually comes from the soul, that through the senses I want to enjoy this. And the desires are kept in the mind. And because of body conscious or material consciousness, the soul wants to enjoy materially. Like a pig, the soul in the pig's body wants to enjoy the stool. The soul in the pig's body would not want to enjoy halwa or any prasadam or any clean place. So everything is combined or mixed together. In the beginning, Lord Kapila has said that perfect yoga enables one to transcend the platform of material distress and happiness. How this can be done is explained here. One has to purify his mind and consciousness. This can be done by the Bhakti Yoga system. As explained in the Narad Pancharatra, one's mind and senses should be purified. One's senses must be engaged in devotional service to the Lord. That is the process. The mind must have some engagement. One cannot make the mind vacant. Of course, there are some foolish attempts to try to make the mind vacant or void, but that is not possible. The only process that will purify the mind is to engage it in Krishna. The mind must be engaged. If we engage our mind in Krishna, naturally the consciousness becomes fully purified, and there is no chance of the entrance of material desire and greed. So the process in this day and age, obviously, is devotional service, which is just straightforward devotional service. When Lord Kapil Dev is speaking in Satyuga, the process was meditation. That's what Karda Muni did. And he again went to do meditation. So whether it is meditation in Satyuga or whether it is chanting of the holy names in Kali Yuga, the process is mind should be given some work. And that work in this day and age is chant and hear, and the mind. If the mind is hearing or listening to the holy name, then mind cannot wander here and there. It cannot do it. Mind, two things it cannot do at the same time: hearing and traveling. So when we chant, we have to make sure our mind is involved in hearing the holy name. So it is not just passive chanting, it is active chanting. And when it is active chanting, mind is engaged, hearing senses are engaged, tongue is engaged, fingers are engaged, and rolling on the beads, then almost all our senses are engaged. And this is what bhakti is. Now the engagement has to be purified slowly. It has to be better engagement. With some feelings, with some emotions, with prayerful heart, we chant. Not just to finish our rounds. We chant, we pray. And that's what bhakti is. And slowly, when the relationship develops, chanting becomes better. When chanting becomes better, the relationship develops more. And that is the purification we need. And that is the yoga system that Kapil Dev is speaking of. So we'll stop here, see anybody has any questions or comments. Okay, so we'll stop here. You all have a wonderful day.